This script is going to be hard to write, to the point where I can almost guarantee you that this will not be my first attempt. The reason I say this is because the more in-depth something is the harder it becomes to figure out how I want to go about it. I know I'm going to put in around 12 hours into this one video, and you can imagine I don't want to waste that time. Because just like everything else, even the worst stuff I review, I want to give it the justice it deserves. Which makes this even harder because what kind of justice does this deserve? Praise? Sure, but what kind? I don't want to go into a review just saying, this is good, and be done with it. Without an explanation to my defense, it makes it seem as though I'm not putting my all into reviewing, when in reality I know that I am. I suppose that brings me back to the original question. Where do I start? It would seem as though the most sensible place to start would be from the beginning. No, the beginning. No, my introduction into the show, and I know this may come off as pretentious, but that isn't my intention. In order for me to give you my opinion on a show, I kinda need you to see things from my point of view. Whenever this show was first announced, I labeled it as a Rick and Morty wannabe. And let's just say there were some unhappy campers. But there were also some who agreed with me. I mean, this kind of thing is going to happen with everything I ever say, but this time it was different. It actually seemed as though the people who respected the show were offended. For that, I am truly sorry. No, seriously, I mean it. Anytime I review something or share my opinions, I never actually mean to hurt the fans of the show, because that's just wrong and goes against everything I stand for. Despite what it may or may not seem, I am very open-minded, and I feel as though people should be able to watch what they want to watch. I can't stop you from liking something, and even if I could, I wouldn't. I'm just here to let you see a show from a different perspective. But sometimes I don't exactly make my points clear. So let me explain what I meant by a Rick and Morty wannabe. I just meant a show that wants to take advantage of a popular trend at the time. Because this will happen, and sometimes it is very blatant that it is indeed a ripoff. Because after Rick and Morty's popularity grew, it seemed as though a lot of animation was becoming more sci-fi, which in itself is fine to take after a genre, but it seemed very coincidental. More sci-fi shows were coming to TV, and as well as the internet. I know Star Wars has a lot to do with this as well, but whenever Seth MacFarlane also happens to create a sci-fi show, it really makes you wonder. I haven't seen that show, but I have seen the others, and let me tell you, most of them are not very good. All I know is space chickens in space, good luck. And maybe Final Space is a wannabe, because despite what people claimed, the pilot of the series wasn't made until after Rick and Morty aired. With that said, now that I have indeed watched the show, I can promise you, other than being a sci-fi dramedy show, that is where the similarities of Rick and Morty and Final Space end. The humor, the locations, the character, and hell, even the tone of the shows are vastly different. If I were to compare Final Space to another show, then it would actually be BoJack Horseman instead. Which, if you don't know, is my favorite cartoon series of all time. So, yeah, I bet you guys didn't see that one coming. I sure as hell didn't. But why would I say that? Well, despite being on TV instead of Netflix, the show actually has strong continuity, much like BoJack. Where one episode ends is where the next will begin. This is something that is actually very surprising, especially from the first episode. Usually this is something that takes time getting used to. That's kind of why it took Star so long into Season 1. To a casual viewer, this becomes very hard to convey unless you're an actual talented writer. And yes, the recaps at the beginning of the show do help very much. But this kind of doesn't hold up much weight anymore, considering near every live-action show on cable has strong continuity, so why not cartoons? I've seen many people watch shows like The Walking Dead out of order, so this should actually be more common in animation than what it is. Remember how everyone was making a big deal about Luna Loud's crush being a girl despite the fact that Clyde has gay parents? Yeah, these two things should be equal whenever it comes to shocking. But hey, I'm always happy to add another one into the family. For the record, I would like to point out shows with strong continuity can still be pretty bad. It's not for everyone or everything for that matter. So, no, my liking of the show has nothing to do with continuity. I mean, if that was all that I liked about the show, then I should go watch South Park Season 20 despite not even liking South Park. Not gonna lie to you though, this show isn't the most original. I mean, I've seen the whole Space Cat thing done before, which by the way, Rick and Morty's did as well. But originality on paper doesn't have to be the case as long as you can take it to new heights. Avocado is unlike any character I've ever seen before, despite being a cat. This guy is a straight up badass and one of my favorite characters of the show. And by character, yes, I do actually mean his character, his personality. In fact, most of the characters of this show are actually very fleshed out. Even Mooncake, who speaks gibberish, has a strong personality in which I actually enjoy his time on screen. This show does have one character I do not like. He is basically the Meg of the show, Kevin. What even is his purpose on the show? Insanity avoidance companion? What does that even mean? It's not just because of how he was treated. In fact, most of the time he actually deserves it. And it gets a little annoying that he doesn't ever get upset by it. He always keeps this happy attitude, but most of the time it comes off as irritating because he really does come off as a hindrance. With that said though, he isn't the worst character ever. I mean, he's miles better than Jerry. He does have a talented voice actor behind him, much like Jerry, and there are parts of the show where I actually like him, unlike Jerry. So yeah, not a bad character, just a bit pointless and annoying. Speaking of characters I do not like in this show, let's talk about Quinn, who is our main character's love interest. So then, what is so bad about her? Well, it's mostly because she felt really shoehorned in, because Gary needed a love interest. As the show goes on, she becomes worse, and then the last third of the show, she actually becomes better. She really does improve to being a likable character. I'm trying to spoil as little as possible, which is why all the footage is from the first episode, so I won't tell you exactly how she changes throughout the show, just know even her character design changes. There is only one more thing I do not like about this show, and that has to do with the episode titles. True, this sounds like a nitpick and isn't the most important thing, but more and more shows seem to be doing this, even good ones. Shows titling their episodes episode or chapter and then the number of the actual episode. It does keep things organized, but at the end of the day, it is very lazy and uncreative. But it is the only thing of the show that is uncreative, which is, yeah, a good thing. Oh, and speaking of creativity, I haven't even mentioned the animation of the show. Unlike almost every adult cartoon, including Rick and Morty and BoJack, Final Space's animation is actually really good. Sometimes the animation can be so good that it's even hard to tell where to look. Many things can be happening on screen at once, and I love it. It gives the show much more rewatchability. Not gonna lie, some of the screenshots of the show I would frame and hang in my room. Some of the show's character designs definitely aren't the best, but as I've learned with the upcoming TMNT reboot, don't judge a book by its cover. Because despite whatever the quality of that show ends up being, the character designs are some of the worst I've ever seen. However, from the short clips I've seen, the animation is actually pretty good. Unfortunately, that's about all I can comment on with Final Space if I don't want to give out any spoilers. So here's what I'll do. I need you to go watch the first season of Final Space, and then meet me back here. I don't know exactly when, but this video will be getting a sequel. As for what's next though,
don't you know how to take get lost for an answer? Dash doesn't need to hang with a dweeb like you now that I'm around.